So here's an interesting conundrum. Why is Genshin Impact an easy game and yet Hoyoverse keeps on nerfing enemies? So if you guys have seen the latest patch for world levels 3 and 5, they've nerfed some bosses. In the past we've had the little geo hatchlings, those annoying ones that keep on running around. Their damage was nerfed. The Abysmal Vishaps, then the damage was like significantly nerfed. Karagi's was nerfed. I would not be surprised if the Spectres are nerfed next and so on. In fact, I do know that in the early beta era, like from last year when corrosion was introduced, corrosion was heavily nerfed from what it was actually supposed to be. And we even had, like, for those of you that's played like in the early days of Genshin Impact, stuff like the grass burning your character also being significantly nerfed. It was quite interesting seeing a level 90 Diluc going down in about 5 seconds because Klee just put everything on fire. It was kind of hilarious. So how do we resolve this paradox of things getting nerfed and yet the game is too easy? In fact, a lot of people would want more challenging endgame content as free-to-play players. Now, to understand this conundrum, let's just think a bit about the general Genshin Impact player base. The majority of people that play Genshin Impact play it on mobile, and there's a reason why Genshin is one of the most successful mobile titles out there. It's because it's an easy game that a lot of people can get into quite quickly and so on. And of course, this means that the majority of the time spent playing Genshin Impact is in the overworld, not in the spiral abyss. And what does Hoyoverse want? What is their key reason for making content and so on? They want you to keep playing as long as possible. Now, I know this sounds like a joke, but just think a bit about it. With this entirely big player base, what do you want for people that have limited time to play on their mobile phones before it overheats or battery drops or whatever? They want people to eventually come back in on a daily basis, keep on playing the game, and hence once Primo Gems become less frequently available, get you to spend for the characters that they sort of market and so on. This is the entire strategy. And this sort of makes sense because in order to keep player retention, they need to obviously listen to any of the concerns that these players have. So if a lot of people that sort of started playing Genshin Impact complain that, oh my god, Venti is useless in Inazuma because I can't use him because the enemies have too much weight attached, you can bet your bottom dollar that in the next patch the developers hard nerf all the Kairaki and some of the Samurai Nobushi enemies and so on. And that is the sort of state of the game. You can understand why the developers are very, very eager to ensure that people continue to play. This is why you keep on seeing that enemies are being hard nerfed, and that's because a lot of people are asking for it. I know people meme on the fact that the surveys don't mean nothing, that Paimon just sort of throws it into shred and so on, but they actually do listen. And here is a very, very sad reality for a lot of us in-game players. The majority of people that play the game play the overworld. They don't play Spiral Abyss. We live in a world where everyone around us knows elemental gauge theory. We love the Kaching main spreadsheet theory crafting videos. We watch I Win to Lose Gaming in-depth discussions about all of this weapon type versus this F2P. Honestly, no one cares. Let me be quite brutal and frank. The majority of the Genshin Impact player base does not care about any of that. And obviously, if you're a developer and you've got all the statistics about everyone in the game, which is obvious from like the travel diary on the Hoyo Lab app and so on, it is really, really possible to imagine that the developers are looking at the majority of the time spent and they're just going to sort of say to themselves, well, why focus effort and development time on endgame when we can make more events, which more people will in any case play than people would play the Spiral Abyss Floor 12. This is just completely logical from a developer's perspective. Spend time and effort and resources on that which affects the majority of your player base. And this might seem unfair, this might seem like, we're just complaining, and I honestly want to say that a lot of it is also the whales and a lot of the hardcore players' fault as well, because when stuff like the Vagabond event and so on came out, a lot of people complained about it. They complained about Energy Amplifier being way too difficult. This is the first anti-F2P events that are out and so on. And what are the developers going to think? Well, it's like, well, if they don't like a game with optional difficulty that you could push your characters to the max, then yeah, you know what, we'll only do this once every 9 months because it's not worth our time. And that is the unfortunate reality. We have such mixed feedback that if things are just slightly too tough or feel like they're paywalled, then suddenly it's not F2P friendly and we're going to complain. And the other half of this is the Spiral Abyss completion rates and so on are too low to really sort of justify actually putting in more content and so forth. So now you guys can see why Genshin, despite being easy, is only really easy because of the people that say it's easy. It's not easy because the majority of the player base reflects it. And that is a reality I don't think people really acknowledge, but it is a certain reality nonetheless. So yeah, those are my thoughts, and this is why, despite this game being really, really easy and there's no real point to spending, enemies keep on getting nerfed, which is kind of funny. Cheers.